Alright, hello and welcome to Bug Free Productions. We got a little bug hiccup here. So listen to the music while I try and fix my quick display for some reason. Doesn't want to pick up that I have my Visual Studio thing open. So I'm going to enable the document and just show you the document for right now. I'm going to look through and see if I can find anything. Render capture. Okay, so this should be showing. This should be showing then, even if I minimize, not if I minimize, but it'll show up. Okay, so if I pop this back, did not, okay. There we go. Okay, for some reason OBS wants to be like, hey, we're not gonna allow you to, I can dock, there we go. We're not gonna allow you to actually capture this VLC, it's different for MVC, it's always different. What is this actually called? Visual Studio, VS. It wants to be like, this is a separate thing that doesn't record. And I'm too chicken to actually do a full screen record with placement, so we're just gonna leave it as window captures. Alright. So here we are. Hello and welcome to Bug Free Productions. Hello and welcome, scripters and kitties. Please remember to like and subscribe, share the video, and comment any ideas or questions you might have on the YouTube videos as well as in chat if you're watching live. We have Tuesdays on YouTube programming. So Tuesday at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. start, and then Thursdays, we won't be moving this just yet. We'll actually be starting a new project on YouTube. So Thursday we'll be starting still at 6 on YouTube. Thursday YouTube. OBS levels say that that's fine. Thursday UPS, or CST at 6 p.m. And we'll actually be starting a Brookbaker type game, so something for a little newer programmers. The reason I started off with such a hard game was it's partially the intention to sell a game using the code that I'm building for this tutorial. Secondly, I was studying for my I was studying for a certification that was a little more difficult, and I needed to practice things at a little bit higher level because that was my comfort zone, and starting YouTube was already uncomfortable enough, so you gotta start from a comfortable place. So that insanely, or not insanely, but more difficult programming setting was to help deal with that. I just wasn't really ready to try and think through how to do some teaching type videos for a lower level. I had to start at something I had already been working on for a little while. And we have, so Brick Breaker. I won't be doing any assets for that one right away up front, although I'll probably do some quick ones on my art streams, which brings us into Saturday. So Saturday on YouTube, I cover game art. I cover what my illustration style is, what my concept design process is, some of the different things, and that aren't necessarily covered in game programming or anything. If the audio comes out a little bit too loud, just let me know, because they're trying a new thing out with some background music with the live stream, and it's a little different. That's kind of something I had looked up and tried to get set up for this stream today, because this is kind of a pivot for me. There was something else that was going to be here, but we're doing Brick Breaker now. So Saturday game art. So we'll do Brick Breaker, we'll do some game art for it probably, and then we'll come back to Brick Breaker programming on the next Tuesday. But for this week, this is what we have. Okay. With that, let's go ahead and head into our code. So if I pop up the code, what do we have? We have this line that shouldn't be here. Visual Studio likes to add random crap to my freaking using statements, and it irritates me to no end. You'll notice this is starting to chug a little bit. That's just kind of because one thing is I might have too many tabs open, so let's kill some of that. But the other part of it is this is an old machine, and this old machine doesn't like to run too fast anymore. I think if you view the video I had, which was concept art, it would have been this last Saturday for game art. It started to chug a little bit and didn't really want to draw any lines with OBS open, so hopefully I'll be changing up my rig next year, but until then I got a laptop to hold placeholder until that guy will be set up for the art ones at least. But for these ones it might be a little laggy for not the stream part of it, but just Visual Studio and compiling areas. Anyway, so what did I want to talk about today? The way the last few have been going, I've kind of talked over some code at the beginning because it's harder for me to troubleshoot some of this stuff live. So let's talk about the canvas navigation. Let's actually just delete this line. So most of these should be stuff that you haven't seen up here before. Except for this one's familiar. Race Manager should be not super familiar. I think I introduced this class and when I talked about the singletons in an earlier video. This part hasn't really changed. Just destroying one object if there's more than one of it in a scene. Pretty simple there. Game mode has been edited a little bit. We're not going to really look at much of it. I'm kind of still working towards making the function of it. But essentially what I'm pulling in here is the goal is to make a game mode script. So this is also a singleton if you read all the way through it, single race manager, which that's named that way because I copy and paste quickly. For some testing, I need to change the name of this method so that it makes sense. And then I'm starting a dictionary, and this is just to keep track of our racers and how they're doing. Just the settings. So what the racer number is, player ID. So what, basically keeping track of which player is who, and then what their preset is for who's going to race. And then saving that information until the point where it's, not needed and given to the game manager or what have you. Object body rotation is something we did in the last video. Canvas nav. This is what I'll probably talk about for a little bit. This is where I'm farther on. You'll notice we have a protected stack. Then we have, okay, drop that line down, not much. Okay, we have a protected stack game object. So a stack that handles types of game object. We have the panel stack and equals new stack of game object. Basically, this keeps track of the game objects, which are, in this case, our panels. And it's just not instantiating. What would that be? That'd be defining it. So it's defined up here to make sure we have reference to it anywhere in here. We also have a using statement for Unity Engine.scene management. And with scene management, then we can use the scene manager that Unity provides for us. So scene manager is in charge of loading scene. You can also add stuff to its on-scene load and such through delegates. We'll touch on that later. So then we have a .load and we have a .scene index that takes in a scene index. This either takes an integer value or a string value. I've done both before. I don't. One thing I would say, if you're loading it through code, is that you should use a scene index. The reason you should use a scene index is that an integer is easier for a programmer to pass through. It's not necessarily faster in a search, but it's easier for a programmer to pass through because they don't have to type it all the time. You could save a variable with this string. That's not a bad idea, but then you run the chance of messing up your string spellings or whatever in here. So rule of thumb, if it's a programmer that's going to use this method, I leave it as an integer. If it's a designer that's going to use this program, then I think maybe I should leave a field up here for them to enter the string. The other thing is, if your designer's somewhat comfortable with Unity, they can go view the scene index by itself. So let me pull an example of that up. What is this? Oh no. That's it's not good. Huh. Okay, so my Unity just crashed we're looking at. Oh, why did it crash? Alright, so while that's relaunching, let's look at the other methods and just kind of look through this code then. Load scene, we got an index. Like I said, designers can use strings or scene index. Once that loads, we'll show you where those can be found. It does make it better for everyone if they can just use, if as many people can just use integers and index it rather than using a string for this kind of reference. That gets really messy fast. Public virtual void turn on panel. So I'm basically just telling it to set a panel active and then push that panel to my panel stack. So then this one will have 1 by the first panel, 2 by the second, so on. And then public virtual void turn off panel. So again, public so that other things can call it. Void because we don't need to return anything. Turn panel off. And then we have panel stack.pop. And what this will do is just pop that panel off of the stack, which is why we use the stack so it keeps track of our last one. So you can kind of think of this as a back button, which is primarily what this will be used for. But I named it turn off panel just in case we have a different use case that we end up using it for. So panel stack.pop.setActive false, meaning it pops it, sets it false, so it's not active. And then since it's popped, it's no longer in the stack, so we can move on with our execution order here. So that's a really easy one. I'll show you what it looks like in the scene. Okay, so my Unity is finally open. Now I can go to the scenes and I can go to local free, local pre, local mode. And I think this is right. Let's go ahead and look at the Unity. How's the Unity look? Unity looks okay. So I made a prefab of this just because I was doing some testing and using it, like copy pasting across multiple scenes. So I made a prefab. If I haven't covered that, you just click and drag into your assets over here. It'll create a prefab, and then anything you change in the prefab is changed up here. Provided you didn't enter a different value. So like if I go into canvas nav and say I had like some serialized fields here, they're like up here, I guess. Blocking objects. If I change some of the settings in here, then they won't be overridden by the prefab. Any case, we have canvas nav script. So canvas nav script is that one we just looked at. Pretty simple. What do we need to do with that one? Well, we pretty much just throw it up here on my top level object. So what I call my top level is where the object starts. So local canvas. And it has the canvas settings. And then underneath this canvas object, we have images and such. So I'll go ahead and create one side by side with that just so you can see it. So to create a canvas, we go right click and we go UI. What is it? Right click UI and then canvas. Because these are pop-up windows, they don't register on OBS. I'm looking for a better way, but so far there's not a better way than just doing straight screen record. Which I want to do a little more. Makes it harder to do the multiple window type thing that I kind of need to keep open for these types of demonstrations. So I'll look at it and try and find something, but this is where we're at for right now. 3D object. So then we go to UI. So right click, go to UI, get canvas. That'll create a new canvas. Has all of this type stuff on it. Then we just add a canvas nav. And then to this canvas, I want to right click on canvas. So select right click, go UI, and I want a Text Mesh Pro button. And I think I've shown how to use buttons here before, or maybe it was with the input system, but very similar to that. So we got new TMP button. So it's actually called, so it's right click UI, button, and then there's a dash TextMesh Pro. Might have to install TextMesh Pro. I don't know why it's not installed by default, considering the old UI is deprecated. So not sure what the point in having it separate and needing to be downloaded is, but they did that. So then in this button, we're just going to go down, find some, this is the text. Did I not get a button? Did I bump something? Looks like I bumped something. Try that again. UI, button, TextMesh Pro. There we go. Yeah, because we should have button and then text underneath it. I think the reason text is underneath it is just so it's a little more separate. Because there's other things you might want to do with the button. I think it's mostly image type stuff. Yeah, so it has like an image component up here that you can replace the UI sprites with some 2D objects. You can change its normal, highlighted, press, all these different kinds of colors and fades. Type of navigation it is, but we're not going to use that today. We're just going to look at starting to set up our button, basically. So let's say I want to move that button. So if I want to edit the text on this button, I have to go to button text. Button text, go to TextMesh Pro. And let's just call this 2 next. And then let's make 3 buttons. Move. There we go. And then this one will be 2 new. So we have 2 next, 2 new, and 2 last. So we'll have one that does the scene management, one that goes back, and one that goes come on, button, move. What's the deal here? What is it doing here? Did my thing quit working? It did for some reason. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay. Not sure what exactly is going on here. I'm gonna turn this back down more though. Okay. Why is this being weird? It did crash earlier too, not too long ago. But why is this weird? Let's fix that maybe. So you'll see these warnings here. And I'll set these. So basically, what I've seen from Canvas is it gives that problem. I'm gonna pause that. It gives that kind of problem and it needs to get reset. So, or not reset, but it only really uses these 3. And this extra stuff isn't necessarily used. And then vertex color always in gamma space. I don't know why it keeps changing that to not be. But button don't move. Wait, why is... Weird. Is it because certain ones are underneath it? Why is that? Okay, something with the raycasting depth, maybe? I don't get it. Anyway. The two next button, and I'm actually going to change the button color a little bit so I can see it a little bit better. Because right now they're all just uncolored buttons. And that is to new. And then this is to last. So probably would say previous, but so to last. So to next, to new, and to last. So I just select the button. So to last, we're actually going to delete for right now, actually. Okay. Another thing we can create on a canvas is a panel. So let's go ahead and go right-click, UI, panel. What a panel is it's a separation of input. So this panel is over top of these buttons, which should mean that no clicks can go through this panel. Doesn't look like that's what it's doing. But, and then if we want to move, so we could have created the panel first and then right-clicked and done that. Since I didn't, what we can do is click, Control-click, select the upper layer objects that you want to move them into panel. And just like we seen before when we were setting transform information and parenting and doing that sort of thing, we have width and height, and it's been automatically adjusted on the panel of the canvas. So it relatively hasn't moved. Why do we have such weird... Huh. So the panel, canvas, yep, panel, very normal. Okay, I'm gonna delete these and see if that fixes the problem. Doesn't fix the problem. Button. Let's try what's the... That's weird. Okay, so what do we do that? What could that possibly be? The button is now huge because it was scaled before. Canvas panel. Alright, let's kill everything except for the canvas that I added. Alright, canvas, UI, panel. Let's stop here. Let's go to canvas. Let's adjust some things on our canvas, just make it closer to consistent. Maybe it's a scaling issue. I like to use scale with screen width if I'm doing anything that isn't world space, meaning not in the world. And we'll probably use that later, but not in this tutorial, most likely. Most of it will probably be this type of thing. And then we want match width or height. We're putting this reference resolution. I do 1920 by 1080 because I'm not going for the 2K games. I'm just making a nice like 16:9 aspect ratio, which is why I have that locked up there. And 1920 by 1080 just makes a nice scale. It also gets me units that I'm used to working with rather than a couple 100-pixel reference. So then we can change how many reference pixels are there. So this basically means there's going to be 100 pixels per 100 pixels per unit. So there's per meter, there's 100 pixels. Units are a little difficult because camera has units and the world has units, and those aren't the same thing. This is units per pixel, or pixels per unit per camera, which is a little different than the world space. Canvas scaler. So now that canvas scaler is set up, let's go to panel. Let's set our panel all the way to full white. It should cover this up, but just because I'm having so many issues, we're gonna hide that and assume two canvases can exist in the same world. So we're gonna go UI, we're gonna go button again. We see the button, so this is displaying a little bit better. So yeah, maybe don't do two canvases in the same world. They don't like it. Let's go 500 by 150. That's good enough. Then we'll go edit our text. Let's go, not new scene. We want a new panel, maybe. New panel. And maybe bump that font up to like something 35-ish. New panel. Okay. So panel, button, text, back to button. Now we're cooking with probably a dead lighter. Let's go ahead and go back to the canvas level, create another panel, and now we'll see that cover. Yep. And just to show you it's absolutely different, I'm going to change my color of the panel. So if I go here, turn that off, you see the panel underneath it. turn it back on, you don't see anything. And if I were to play this and click, you wouldn't get any input registered on that button back there. So what do we need here to do the test? We need a UI, we need a button, and the button was here. I'm just going to go 500 by, what was it, 150? 500 by 150 and go down to the text layer, do like 35. And here's where we're going to start making different ones. So now on this panel, so we've tested to go to a panel. Now we need to check back so that we can flip to the last panel we were on. And there are better ways to do this probably. It's just, this was the quick way I wanted to do that I could use as a designer and not have to use as a programmer, which can be, I could make this really complicated, and I just didn't really want to because playing around with scene management gets hairy sometimes. If you try and do too many things and automate too much. So we're just going to call this the back one. It's going to be 35, not 25, 35. And so this is the back button. Whoops. Grab the button, not the text. So I just did Control D. You select there and hit Control D and it duplicates. Then you can move that copy down. Let's go ahead and move down to the back button. We got the back button. What does this do? So this one's not going to go back. It's going to go to a new scene. New scene. So we go back. So now we have officially made buttons to go to a new panel, go back from a panel, and go to a new scene. All three of those methods should be covered. Was there another one to check? Nope, that's all the three we're looking at today. So we go to the button, and here's why this canvas nav is how I did this. Canvas nav is in one place. All of those methods are really simple, self-contained, and they don't necessarily worry about the other one running. They also don't require a bunch of references or anything else. What they do require is, if I turn on code real quickly, which is random window capture because the other one wasn't working. What we do need from this one is we need to give an integer, a game object, or nothing at all. The fun thing about buttons is they allow you to do all this with minimal code currently. So, and actually better than when you try and script to them quite often, at least as of 2020. As of the 2020 version, they weren't all that great to script to. So we have button. We need onClick here. So under button component, we go to onClick and we add. So the great thing about this is that we can take the canvas item that everyone's going to be underneath, so they can't be spawned without it if we make this a prefab, which is good. So we take that guy and we drag him in, and instead of no function, we're going to select our canvas nav component of that canvas object. and we're gonna go, and we have that button, which is new scene. So we're gonna go scene, turn panel on, turn panel off, load next scene, and then we can add an integer into it. So it's it's recognized automatically that this method here wants an integer. So it gives us 0 to start with. That's probably fine to start. It's basically just going to take us back to our 0 scene, which I don't remember where that is, but here's where you can, even designers can use indexing in Unity, because if you go to your build settings, I added a couple scenes to this, so you can add like your, create a new scene with this type of thing in it, and use our sample scene that we were working in to do player character movement. I just add both of those scenes here, and then you'd have like a 0 and a 1. If you have a bunch of scenes in here, you'll notice there's check marks that I can click on and off. That means it's added to the build index or it's not. I could just remove this, but I might have configuration stuff where I just want to change it. I don't necessarily want to take it out of the build manager whole cloth yet. You would do that before you do a final build, but I'm going to leave this here because might use it. So scene start scene is this thing. So it should take us to here if we have 0. But you could change it to be 1 or any other type of scene so that the game designer can actually change how the levels connect through the menu system and that sort of thing. Like if you're changing your scenes and you're like, I want to try testing a new menu system, but I want to keep the original start screen. Well, then you can just load it. Or you want to change like a race stage, and you don't want to remove the old race stage, you just want to add a new one and test it for a little while with that new one. Well, then you could go into the build settings, disable the old one, enable the new one, and they could be the same number. It could be the same number as the old one, so not even the script settings would have to be changed from the designer's point of view, because all theirs would just reference whatever's in that index. The problem with that can be that not all designers are going to want to go in here and be like, oh, look up what the scene's named and get that index and then use that index. But it does keep everything in integers, which is nicer than dealing with, what was it? Which was strings, yep. Keeps you from dealing with strings, which can be kind of a pain. I don't really like even looking at them, to be quite honest. When I had to concatenate for netcode for game objects, it was a real pain. Not fun. But this is one way around that, which I really thought was fun. So this button, what do we do for... That wasn't that button, was it? It was that button. Okay. I screwed up. Yeah, it's supposed to be that button. That button should be the new scene button. I accidentally clicked on the one underneath it, up here. So just quick change. So which is load next scene. So that goes to the next scene. I also did that too because then people, like, scripts can just go in and get this. Which I might even move this to the game manager eventually, but until then, we're just going to leave it there and not use a plus plus or anything. We'll just set it manually for current purposes. And then we have this button, which is our back button. So if we have, you can see this is why I don't like to use that when it's in the scene view. Because you get everything in the scene. That's no help. So this one's going to be turn panel off. And then this button back here is going to be still in canvas nav, but it's going to be turn panel on. And from there, I'm going to go panel to that. So the panel that's supposed to be the second panel after you press this button, we access the canvas, turn on panel, pass in the panel we want. Which just means I don't have to automatically do this, and we can swap out which panels connect to which button and whatnot. So with that, let's go ahead and save that. And we'll go ahead and play. Oh, not quite yet. Why do you have to complete the domain? Nothing changed. So let's play. Let's go. So we stop the play. What was it I wanted here? I need this panel off, because if it turns so that I can click this button. So consider this like your start menu. So this is your start menu. Then we go to this, and we go like start game. And we can go back to start game screen. And then we can go to new scene. So like a new scene, maybe like a race stage. And it starts us here. Which I've hooked this up to go back to local mode select. So I'd hit play. I want to just turn this off then. So I can just disable that. I can enable this again. And additionally, we could put another one on that's like only turns on the first panel. I just didn't want to deal with that. So, and then this back button is actually different than the other one. So this uses the load next scene method, so that if I want to go back to a different older scene, I can go back, and I just set it up to go to the start screen. So this is essentially start scene, and then I can go local, then I can select solo, which will probably just get rid of this. Not this. I'll probably just get rid of this part. Because I'll make the game mode, and the game mode will have, that's where I was kind of working on the game mode. I want to be able to create, be able to just go into free race or Grand Prix and just be able to select the racers and stuff. Kind of like, if you remember, I think Brawl still uses a system kind of like that, where it's like you just move your cursor around and drop it on a character, and that's how they select characters per player. This one will be a little bit different. It'll just be like a slide swipe, like a carousel selection system. A little dumber one than my friend Nick made, because it was his was a separate asset that was really cool and it worked really well. I'm just not sure it'd be a new asset to learn, and I'm not sure that I can necessarily do that with the way I want to set things up, considering I need to check if somebody else has it selected. So I just know how swapping pictures works. So basically, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to swap pictures in. uh, so they would be able to go free race, which would be a one race selection with the option to repeat, or they go Grand Prix, which would be a racing option where you have several races in the line. You select it ahead of time, so like I get set a array number size. So it's like, say I want 5 races. I can pick from any of the racetracks and just throw them in there. Even multiple ones of the same one all in a row. And it gives them a little bit, it gives you a lot less downtime because, especially if I make the races really short, say like not even 2 minutes long or something, just a real sprint. It's fun just to be able to go Grand Prix and go like, I almost want to run all these in a row, 7 of them, then I leave. So having that's really nice, I think. It's just something I really liked about the game Sonic Riders. Um, Not Zero Gravity, just the original Sonic Riders. I liked how simple it was, how fast the menu system was, and how just general ease of playing the game and running your races and getting back to whatever else you had to do. It wasn't like some racers where you got to go in and it takes a really long time to get from race to race. And even offline, I just like games that are. I like fast menus. I don't like them to drag at all. I want to flip through it really quickly and maybe for the computer to figure out what I'm doing exactly a little bit, rather than me having to try and select a bunch of different menu options. Because nobody really likes, aside from RPG lovers, nobody likes spending time in a menu. Um, so with that, that's the UI part of it, and I'll go back to the code and show that again. And just kind of go over where we were at with that. Gonna throw this muted. So what does that look like when I'm on here now? So window capture. I really should have renamed that, but here we are. Anyway, so the panel stack, we noticed how when we clicked turn on panel, it did set it active. And we know it pushed to the stack because when we do a pop, it had something to pull. So as long as we keep the generic, like general structure of it, and we could add some if checks to make sure, like, hey, if you have a panel off call that and there's nothing in the stack, then we could debug log, tell them to set a setting. We can do some of that stuff in here, but for the most part, this is all ready and ready to go, which is great. Means we're getting closer to our thing. I'll show you. That wasn't all that difficult, except for the part where the canvas system flipped out at me. But we'll look at one more thing I think I want to show today is just I looked it up and it's just really simple and fun. This is called an extension class. If you have a class that you wish had a method that maybe it doesn't, this is a good way to do that. Basically, you make a static class. Static classes are not created with a new keyword. They just kind of are. Similar to, like, if I went to go get a struct, I could get a struct by reference like this. Kind of like you go vector3 dot, and you can do that similarly with a static class. So bug-free tool dot to index. This is just kind of a joke couple methods. They aren't really that useful. One, because creating a method that does your indexing for you isn't a great idea. One, because it's complex. Two, because when you go to pass the actual index into something, if you forget to add this line, it'll be wrong. And then you'll also have no idea because you're not keeping track of the index. So that's, yeah, it's helpful once in a while if you're just starting, but it's not a very good idea to get to use or get used to. This one was just an example of how I throw this into a vector3. So if I want to extend the vector3 with my own static class, I just create a static method inside the static class. And this one just says give me a number, this vector3, AV3. So a little complicated, or a little more conceptual here. This, meaning the vector3 that it is, AV3. So basically vector3 referencing itself, and this would be the instance of that vector3. So if I had what can we use? I can just type into game modes. No, I'd rather not mess with that. I'll just use Canvas Nav for a little test buddy here. Let's just throw it in the bottom here, just so you can see the autocomplete. So vector. So vector3 dot so vector3 dot give me a number should give me a thing, right? Well, it does extend the class technically, but it only extended instances of the class. So, and especially since it's a struct, it's a little bit different. If I had this as like a static object, it might behave yet differently again. But for the most part, I just need, so we do vector3, AV3. Let's just call it that vector3 dot 1. So vector3 that's all ones. And then AV3 dot give me a number. So I can extend it, but the extension's only available to instances of that class. At least in this case. There might be other ways to do it and make different kinds of extensions, but this is the one I found, the one I was shown. Just kind of interesting. So you ever thinking like you make that game manager and then you're just like, God, I wish this game manager had like another method, but going in there and editing it would kind of break it. Or post launch, it's like I wish this one had it, but I don't want to change the file. I just want to change the class. You can do it this way too. Kind of useful. So with that, yeah. So that's extensions. Those are fun. Game mode is what I'm working on currently. Which started out, I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, and then immediately you can see in my scene management type thing, I didn't like that whatsoever. I think I'm in local free, local mode, sample scenes. I think it's in cameras and racer selection. And then I made render mode module, or render modules. Render textures. So basically, these are serialized arrays. Okay, you're still on code. So let's just flip over to since it's already on code. We got a bunch of arrays here that are serialized and protected so that they're only readable from other non-class objects or non-child objects. And we have a couple things here. This immediately is gonna look really scary to anyone that hasn't done a lot of indexing or just plain doesn't like indexing. I'm right there with you. I hate the crap, but you gotta do what you gotta do, man. I was originally using this. I was gonna show this as a demonstration on how you can write and use it, and then it just wasn't useful. It was gonna be a bunch of extra typing for me to just throw this in to the static method rather than just grabbing it and putting -1 in. Plus, it gets harder to manage when you start doing less than equals, and if you're at, because I've already been practiced in this kind of stuff, so for me to make it so that it was doing the indexing for me was just, or converting the index for me wasn't really great. Um, Also, I was doing something at the same time where it needed negative, and I'm like, I can't. I simply cannot. Um, Plus, I'm passing in the actual index, so passing in that index and then trying to do indexing that's also somewhere else. Just sometimes it's best to keep all your code in one spot, other times you want to spread it out. Gotta get used to making the decision where that is. So basically, I'm just a lot of these are getting selection indexes, and then selection raster prefabbed, selection render texture, and check if selected. So check if selected will check if the next object is selected. And I'll actually go through and explain this once this gets finished. But this is just kind of a quick look at it. We'll use a while loop to check if it's found, so it'll cycle through. So the idea isn't to display if it's selected. I was going to originally do that. I didn't like the idea of it. What I came out with is going to be the plan that I'm moving forward with is, okay, so I go to the next box. Is that selected? Well, if that's selected, we go to the next box and we just display that. We're not going to the next one displaying a grayed out image, which would be good for learning purposes, but in terms of menu speed, I'll skip it because last thing you want to do is scroll through a bunch of them, and 4 of them, 5 of them, 6 of them are grayed out and unselectable. That's just nightmarish to me, at least. That's when you introduce something like Brawl has a coin system where you drop it on a character or something, and I don't want to do that either because I like everything to be kind of like D-pad or keyboard inputs. I don't like dragging and dropping mouses on a game that doesn't really use it. Um, so I'm just not gonna really use that. I'm gonna go more for like keeping all the controls on the keyboard and making them faster for even the menu system. Just didn't wanna do that. I thought it would take away from fast racing game. And then get next selection, so we just keep going. I'll explain more of this later as I get some more of this working and connected, because I didn't realize how much effort that was really gonna be. Uh, it's it didn't take me too long to get this far, but trying to map, like, there's still parts of it I'm mapping out to how it's gonna connect. So I'm not gonna do that live. We're gonna go look at some physics type stuff today. Um, Now that we're done with that scene manager. that's scene management and canvas type stuff. Now we're gonna move on. If you have any questions or stuff you'd like me to take a look at again for the next one, just go ahead and comment down below for canvas type stuff, and we'll revisit this later. What's in render module? I didn't change anything. Oh, I took out a comment. Since I'm here, did I leave any stupid comments in here? Doesn't look like it. Okay. With that, let's go over to the scene I pulled open. We got render modules. We got render mods 1, 2, 0, 1, and 2. And why do I have different modules? Idea on this is being, so we can talk about that probably quick. Something new I've been playing around with is using something that my buddy Nick used for the AI, or the UI in our other game. Not text mesh. Top-down racer. Racer input prefabs. Where would that be? That'd be in materials. In my materials folder, I added a render materials folder, which is not what I'm looking for. Camera rendered materials. Because render materials is used for other things. Any case, the idea behind these objects is we're using something called a render texture. So if we look at this is racer render texture. So these are the settings. Can't really go above 256, so don't use this to render like a beautiful image in like over top of the whole screen. It ain't gonna look right. I think this is meant more towards mini maps and parts of this, like when the screen's on canvas or something. Like if you have a TV in game, you can display this as a screen or what have you. Not meant to be super big. Enable MIPS map. I left dynamic scaling on just because I do want it to scale correctly. Wrap. Can change how that works. And then the reason there's no camera in here is because I'm just rendering out to these guys currently. So the idea is that we have these render textures, and then in a camera, so camera object, you have a target texture. So this one's mapped to Racer 1. So whatever that camera sees, it displays it on texture 1. The fun key to doing this is if you do this in a scene, you can run things like rotate this sphere, which I'll probably do when I start putting in the bike assets and stuff. So I'll put in like our bots in this case, throw in our bots, make them rotate a little bit. It'll be a visual representation, not necessarily of our actual object. But it'll spin in here, and then this will render to here. And then we can take this and give it to an image component somewhere else. So if we create empty, no, that's not what I wanted. So if we create a canvas, create UI canvas. So if we create a canvas, it doesn't display. Okay, so why does it? There's a camera in scene, so it should. Whoops. Okay. Something didn't delete all the way. Okay. Something didn't delete all the way, that's all that was. When I was taking comments out, it got upset. So, if we play, let's just make sure that works real quick. Three audio listeners. Okay, so camera has audio listeners. Yep. I don't need those. And so if you do change things in your prefabs when you have them in scene, not tags, go to prefab, go to overrides, then apply them. Now they'll be applied to the prefab, which means anything that's not overwriting that value will also get that updated. Just fun why we kind of work in these little scenes. The other thing I could have done, okay, because render modules is the top layer object of the prefab, we can go up here and you see this little arrow, and we go zoom right into the prefab, and we can edit the prefab directly here. And then we can go scenes when we're done, back to scenes. The way I used to do it is I used to have to go through my project and go to like assets, go to prefabs, like click on it every time I wanted to edit it, and you can just tab over, which is so much nicer. I don't know if that's new or if I'm dumb, but I love that. That's the kind of that's the kind of UI I want to mimic. Just that function right there. Okay. One click, many function, not needing extra input. Sphere, main camera. Reason I removed the audio listeners, there's no audio for this, so why should they have that? All the cameras I changed to be untagged. So if I like create a camera, right? Create, right click camera. So camera, now I can see things in the scene. I'm not sure why. I think it's because it's not tagged main camera. Might have been. Might be the object level. There's a lot of things it could be. But in any case, canvas. So let's create a prop UI panel. What's a panel look like here? Panel looks like this. So I don't like how it's half opaque. That makes no sense to me. Just give me a white colored screen. Not literally Unity, but you know. Could be worse. It could be something like Windows. Anyway. Canvas panel. Then I'm just going to create a UI button. TMP. And I'm not adjusting all this stuff because this is just like not even going to use that button. I just want an image. Because we're just kind of showing stuff off. We're not really keeping this anyway. So we're going to go UI, we're going to go image. And let's take, oh, whoops. Yeah, I'm not in, that's not in the right thing anyway. So if we go back to image, and then we take, and we go Okay, I can't. Maybe it was raw image. So let's go. Let's delete image. Go back to panel, UI. What do I want? Input field, scroll bar, slider, toggle, image, raw image. This image is raw. Let's go ahead and drop that in there. So now you'll see the render texture can go into the raw image and display here. But you notice if we made it like really big, it's gonna look like crap because it's only 256 pixels. So you want to keep that small because it doesn't necessarily work very well. Or it works pretty well, but it's not high resolution. It's only 256 pixels. That's why I would reserve it for something like Minimap. You got something like a TV screen I gotta throw it on. Okay. Better solution to a TV screen might be not. Well, I guess security cam footage. That would still probably be preferable to the other idea. So yeah, anytime you gotta render something that's on a camera in the world, render it that way. One more thing on cameras before moving on to our couple minutes of physics stuff, some of our movement things. Camera. So you'll notice we go into here and I changed the camera's render layer. Layer. And so you can add layers in here. Yep, 32 layers, 1 through 31. In case anybody remembers that video or that stream. So you might think this is a lot. You can fill this up pretty quickly. I think Battle Tops is a really simple game, and it filled up till like 14 and then 32 through 28. Because you'll use these layers for render, you'll use them for physics, and you might need quite a few of them by the time you get all your game components together. So, keeping in mind layers, I don't think we've done layer check yet, but we will when I do ground check, because that'll be nice. But yeah, so main render, and changing its layer doesn't really matter a whole lot unless you're doing some of the post-processing so far. That's the only time I've seen the render layer actually matter for a camera. The layers come more into focus. Focus, get it? Cameras come into more into focus when we get into culling masks. So, for example, I don't want anything rendered that's not this, that is not render texture. I'll probably do that for each one. So if I click here and control click, any shared common properties I can change in here. So we can actually go into everything and change it from nothing to is render. And it'll change them across both objects. It would have done 3 if I control clicked all 3 of them. Like that. And now you can see the culling mask is set to the same now. And to apply that to the prefab, I just go overrides, apply all. Apply in small amounts, because otherwise you gotta weed through object layer by object layer, and it's like GitHub. Keep it simple. Don't complicate your pushes and your pulls and commits. It's not the fun way to go. But you'll see all these main cameras have these render previews. So if we play again, what's it look like? It shouldn't change anything. But now we're only looking at that layer. So we're not looking at default or anything else. We're just looking at the layer, and that's what those spheres are on. And then the colored, the brown and the blue, that's just filled in because there's nothing in camera. So if we change, that's actually our skybox, I guess it would be, which would be changed if we put like an actual skybox in. So what I'll actually probably do is once I get the UI designed a little bit more, I'll probably go in and do some more stuff in here uh, and put like a color background behind it that matches whatever our UI design looks like, so that it looks like it's not different layers. It looks like it's on the same background or in front of the same background, uh, which looks pretty cool. But that's that. And with that, oh no, please don't tell me that it was playing for that. Main camera. It should be saved out, so it should be fine. Yep. There's some things you can change while the game is running, and things that you can't. Things that you can change are things like scriptable objects, anything outside in the assets folder, that sort of thing you can change out, although it might cause a reference error, so don't do that. But scriptable objects are okay, usually pretty safe, depending. No images, don't do anything like that. Just integers in scriptable objects I know are pretty safe, along with floats. Never change string references. That's a pretty much ever statement. Never change them. But then there's that. So I'm just going to disable that because I won't use that for this. With that, we'll head back to the scenes. I'm just going to open up our sample scene that we're working on the player with. So this little guy. And you'll notice that this scene wasn't activated in build settings, but we can still play from it. We can still play from it, and it's no big deal. Was it H? Yeah, H. Okay, I forgot I still had that disabled. But looking back on it, we had a racer that was set up to turn and do some stuff. Player container, player mod. And the reason we took that out, or just disabled it kinda, is we didn't want it, or the left-right move. Because our idea is we spawn all the players in the starting place lineup that we want them to be in, and then we kind of adjust it from there. So for example, if a racer's doing really well and he's like leading on the leaderboard, I'll probably throw him in 8th place and make him push to the front of the pack. Just kind of makes it a little more fun because nothing's worse than you either need to have equal starting, where players can either pass the start line to start the race whenever they want. Like, there's a countdown. So in Sonic Riders, there's like a countdown. It goes 3, 2, 1, and then you all sprint for the line to start and try and get across it. And you can get perks for being the first one there when the fence finally drops, but that sort of thing. But to keep with the tutorial, make it a little simpler, I'm just going to do 1 through 8 starting positions, and then flip. So if you're scoring really high, you got it first place. I'm gonna put it in 8th and 2nd. Yeah, so you just have inverse all the way up to the front. So in order to get past all these people, you have to actually pass them all the way, and that'll add some difficulty to the game. A little bit of that, especially in multiplayer where you're against your friends, so it's like they're actually gonna be a little bit smarter about racing versus these what we create for AI. Which I use AI loosely. I mean, they're game bots. They're not chat GPT or something. It's gonna be simplified decision tree or something like that. But capsule player. Let's go player. So I'll probably close grind. I don't think we'll be working on that today. That seems like a big bug to squash for today. Race manager. I'm not really gonna deal with race manager a lot right now. Game mode. Nope. But I'll leave it open because I'll work on it later. I just don't want to look for it. So what does that leave us with next? Well, that's going to leave us with the okay. Next thing will be onto the game thing. I might have to mute some servers. Racer move. Racer move input, racer input, and racer move context. Are we gonna have to edit context? I don't think so. I think we'll just have to. We'll just continue to edit. Racer. I want accelerate MS because I want to do some stuff with that. I think we had some rotation that we were editing. All right, we needed to that rotate body thing that we did for the wheel. We were gonna fix that so that it rotated a bit smoother, or not smoother. It rotates smooth enough. It's the speed that it's not rotating at. So we were gonna make that variable so that designers could change how fast the wheel spun according to the rigid body that we're already getting information from for its acceleration vector, which is not acceleration vector, velocity vector, which is how fast at what weight it's moving. So we might need accelerate, we might need draft, dash. What else would we need? Well, that's pretty much it for the states, I think. We could open drift. I think it'd be fun to do drift. I gotta kind of think about it a little bit more though, because I haven't thought much about it. I know I increased the. Oh, it might just be a slower. Might be slower accelerations and coroutine. Okay. I have notes to make on that. So let's not do that, but we will start with the move states. Let's go ahead and create a folder. And like I said before, we're going to create an error. We're going to create ground states. Uh-oh, somebody hit caps lock. Grounds. Ground states. So we go into ground states, and we're probably going to have a create C# object, or C# script. And we're not going to call this a move state. This is going to be a ground state. So let's call this ground state underscore, no underscore, because this is the original one. So much like our other ones, we're gonna have one ground state. We're gonna have and this isn't gonna be a lot of scripts, so I'm just gonna go right off here and go ground context. Ground context. Ground state, ground context. Unity's a bit slow. You don't see the pop-up loading bar, but trust me, it's definitely there. Create C#, because like I said, old computer. Ground controller, ground state, nano behavior, ground controller, ground state. No, it's ground context, ground state, and then we're gonna have grounded. Grounded, and then we're gonna have underscore GS, ground state, and then I'm going to create another script, C# script. And this guy's going to be something like airborne. And then underscore ground state. Cool. And you might think, why even bother with some of this? It's more so for animation later. Because I want each state to be able to return me like the other one has booleans. It's like, hey, return this boolean state. Okay, done. So we're just gonna do the same thing. We're gonna be able to get is grounded, and then it'll return if it's on the ground or not. And we're not gonna have to do the whole state management thing that we had to do with the other one where we track what the last state was, because we're not gonna care. We only care about, is it on the ground or is it in the air? A lot more binary. So if you had a little bit of trouble with the other state machine, this might be a better place for you to, might want to look at this and then take a second look at that and see if it either makes sense better or if you can fix what you have. Be pretty good. So I'm just going to open all four of these in my Visual Studio. Ba, 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 ba. And then, what happened? What did you do? What did you do, VS? It did some really weird spacing thing and just totally threw things off. I'll switch over in just a second, because I need 8/13/. Okay. Yeah. I always think it's funny that every time I look at this, where it's just me typing my name in in comments, is the thing that it was a big thing before. It's like, don't let for network insecurity, they made a big deal about don't let anyone know what time, like, you don't show a clock, don't show a date, and don't show a name. And it's like at this point you can get that from anything. Like everything's time stamped, everything's location stamped. And it's like people can get it even if you don't provide it. It's really just kind of funny how some of that stuff changes a little bit, especially when you start doing videos or instructions or anything like that. It's like it, there's different rules for different things. Uh, One of those things where they talk about the security triangle, and it's like you can't have accessibility and what was it, confidentiality or something like that. Because if you can access it, it's not confidential, but if you can't access it, it's not worth anything, is it? Because it's not usable information at that point. Alright, so we got, yeah, you guys got code up side screen. Let's go copy that, just so we know when we started it, in case we need to look for a date for some reason. And no, not the Tumblr kind, or whatever's going on these days. I have no idea. People have been saying Twitter's dying. Been saying that for years. It's never actually happened, so you know. Oh, Control Shift S, save all of them. Go back and clear some more. We still got a good 20 or so minutes. Can I finish this in that amount of time? We'll find out. Got a nice little, yeah, and I quit playing the music. Found out that gotta find no DMCA music. And then some of it, one of the artists I already listened to on Spotify is no DMCA, and unfortunately Spotify doesn't work consistently, so it's just been kind of, it paused and then it stopped and then it paused again, and I'm like, okay, we're just gonna close that off. That's why we haven't had music for the last close to 40 minutes or so. Probably more than that. It died pretty quick, I think. But that's the thing with that. Just wasn't working. Which is better than the application does, because the application crashes my PC, so thanks Spotify. Ground state, vars. So ground state, it's gonna have probably those one we had on, it's gonna be public. It's gonna be public, I think. If not, we can make them public and then make them private later. Virtual void, because we don't want to return it. Oh, actually we do. We want to return what it is. It's a ground state. Ground state. GROUNDED. Want lowercase? No, uppercase, because this is a method. Why? I don't know why I'm putting it in variables. That's crazy. Because grounded is a method. Return guess default we can no, we don't want to do that. That'd be dumb. Return. Alright, so if we remember right, we do C# class. No mono behavior. Just standard class, I should say. And then we go to grounded GS. This will be not a mono behavior, but this will be a grounded ground state. Grounded GS. So ground state, virtual ground state, grounded should return a, and this is a bit of the cycle that we have to set up, right? So ground context variable. Protected ground state. Let's go cur GS, and we're not going to set that. And just to keep good practice, so that I can read it later, region state creation, hashtag end region, and current GS. What else are we going to have? Protected, because it's not serialized and we don't need to do anything else to it. Protected currently, GRO, ground state, ground state is equal to a grounded, and this will be lowercase, and I'm actually just going to go GS on this one. It's equal to grounded GS, and we need new because we need to construct a new one with parameters that are empty because we don't have parameters that do anything. All of our stuff's taking in information, for example, ground context in grounded GS, no, in ground state, in this method, a GC, so a ground context. So we're slowly getting there. AGC dot, let's go back to ground context, continue to finish this. What else do we need? So we don't need the new one. So it's a airborne and again, the reason why we do this is because they all are going to share these methods and we want to call them all from the base class so we can have some interchangeability. And we'll, while still having different values and some different methods, even though they're all different. So here we go, a new airborne GS. And why does that work? That's probably because we haven't deleted the mono behavior tag from it, or we extend it or inherit from mono behavior. So I want to just get rid of that and replace it with ground state. I could have called this racer ground state, made it a little longer, more descriptive. Maybe we want a cone to have a ground state, who knows. But ground context is equal to new airborne. So this is full methods. So we want this to happen on enable, likely. And I don't like on enable to be inherited to much of anything. priv private and on enable. No parameters because can't really, or you can, but you shouldn't. I think there's like different ones you can call that I just don't. Which is overlapping, I think. I don't know. Private void on enable. It's been a while since I used some of that terminology to the point where it's like, not sure the specific name for it, but I remember what it does. Private on enable. We just want to set cur.gs. Cur.gs is equal to grounded airborne. So let's just say grounded. Grounded GS. Because that does exist. It's a new C# class that we constructed. Same with that one. New GS. Okay. Next, let's make sure we can access it because we need to access it and tell it to change to it. The methods, and if you remember from the last one, we had methods. Methods to change state, and we had separate ones in here. We might not need that. Simply because there's only 2, and maybe possibly 3 if we add one later. So it's a pretty binary set of things that can happen. It can either change or it cannot change, and that's we're just gonna leave it open to change anyway. So it's not really all that important to make those methods to change the state in this case. So we're not gonna do it. Because don't take more time to make something that doesn't need to be there. Accessors. We're gonna go ahead and for an accessor, we're gonna need to just access current state. No, we're gonna need to access these. Don't necessarily need to access current state at all, outside this class, that is. So, public. Watch me just get to the point where everything works and then I still haven't tuned anything. Which is fine. That's why we create so many places to tune it easily. It's because we will forget. We will forget to tune things because we are working on the programming and development part of it in these streams and not the design part. And actually, the design part's kind of getting overlooked a bit in favor of doing development and art, which game art is different than game design. It's an important distinction to make. Art would be the creation of 3D models and assets and things like that. Where design would be more choosing what types of aspects and mechanics we want in the game, how we want our feel to be, that sort of thing. That's more the design, and then the art is like meeting in with the design. That's kind of how I've heard it described most times recently, is people look at game designers. There's like game designers, level designers, people that choose what the mechanics, what the levels look like and stuff according to what they want the actual game to be like. And then there's the programming, which designs the tools and the behavior and stuff and that sort of thing. And there's the artists. So they create the assets and the pretty things that go in the game. So artists and programmers both work to create both assets to make the game look nice and create aesthetic, as well as coders work to help the designers have a space to uh, create the designed game that's envisioned. Um, and all three should work together quite often. Um, there's a very rare chance that would be different. And I can't think of one right now because it's a bad idea in general. But it is possible that that would be a case. So grounded, GS, and then so ground state grounded returns just AGC. Grounded GS. And we don't really need anything else, we just end that line. Actually, case for that might be something that, say, some of the AR side part when you're doing way background tools, like stuff that maybe even your lower level programmers won't necessarily even see. They technically probably aren't going to interface with everybody else too much. They're more fixing engine type things. Airborne. I was just thinking of a funny idea for a game would be to make Bloodborne but with an air genasi for some reason. Or an air elemental or something like that. That just seems like it'd be kind of funny. Not sure how well that could be made, but or not how well it could be made. It could be made really well, but just not sure how well it would work by its as an idea. Like, for instance, not sure what kind of enemies you'd have. But, at any rate, accessors. We're just gonna have the one, and it's gonna be public virtual, because I want people to be able to override this as well. Public virtual of type, and this is gonna be a bool. Bool is grounded, and we're not gonna have to take in anything because I don't think it can possibly be affected. Get. This is going to be return type of Boolean, and this is going to be return true line, enter. Okay. In ground state, yep. So basically all our states have are these two methods. It is either grounded, it either can perform grounded, or it can perform, this class being it, this class can perform grounded method and airborne method, and has a getter that returns true of is grounded. So the idea being behind that nobody has to change anything because it can always move between ground or airborne. And we can set its accessor directly to be public override bool. And I can see autocomplete, so I'm just going to do that. Don't necessarily want this space. Oh, whoops, that's not right at all. Override bool is grounded. There we go. Base. Basically, I'm just going to rewrite get. Just because I'm more comfortable looking at it. I'm sure that arrow works just fine. Return, and this is the grounded state, T true. And why would I want to be more explicit? Well, that's just my preference. And then copy this, and we'll go into the airborne, add the accessor, and then make this false, because if you're in the air, you're not on the ground. That should be all good then, eh? Ground context on enable. And I might have lied. So we might still need those methods I was talking about. CHANG. Methods to change state. Right? Sounds great. Sounds cool. Sounds awesome. Right? Grab a drink. We're just gonna go. Can I just go ground maybe? Public ground. Don't like that. Don't do that. Come on. So I'm kind of in a corner. There's not a lot of words I can use. Ground ed. Because grounded has GS under it, which is, thank goodness for underscores. I need a type, which is probably what some of that issue was. Public void grounded. Yep, that works. And we're just gonna call cur.gs grounded. And this is probably something we could simplify down to just something that does a binary or just has two two enumerations and an enum. Could do that. And I have two methods that do if checks. I'm just trying to avoid if checks altogether at this point. I had a really bad bad time when I had some controller and it had 2 sets of enums, one for ground and one for represented what state it was in, and then having to design the tree for that was just bad. It was very bad. So I'm just gonna go grounded. And then you remember we needed a context. So from the context, we're just gonna tell it, use this. Then we're gonna go airborne. Which is kind of the point of the tutorial series is online, is to not have the same headaches everybody else had when they were designing their first systems. Even though this is maybe not entry level, this is still pretty accessible. At least this part. So yeah, now we can call grounded airborne context. Airborne. So then everybody should work perfectly together. There shouldn't be any spaghetti left on the plate. Should all be cable managed with zip ties. No spaghetti. Which that should be good. There is one thing we still have to do, and that is, so we have the context and all that stuff. Where do we want to put the decision, or what I usually call, do we want a helper? Do we want a helper meaning this is on a game object, right? Do we want it to check if it's grounded? Because this is the mono behavior, he would have to do it. Or do we want another helper? So to decide if we want another helper, let's go ahead and grab my mouse, wherever that may be, go back to Unity. Let's look at our player bod and follow the same kind of logic that we did when we set him up. Race remove context does all this stuff, takes in parameters, takes in a body transform. I think that's just for reference. I don't think he actually says move. Oh wait, no, he calls the state and tells him to move. So that is reference, but it looks like he tells it to move, which he doesn't. It's the state doing that. Much like employees, they do as the state tells them to do. Player input, default map, racer con, all that stuff looks fine. So input bridge was the part where we have a helper. We have an input that runs to the input bridge, which the bridge decides what to do. Which was our setup for that. When we gained input, it was collected through here, a helper. So maybe we stay with the helper idea. Plus then we'll separate our code a little bit in a way that makes it very easy to alter. So let's go back, and we'll probably need to move these around, but we'll just go here and create. And, oh, we're actually a little bit over. Okay, so we'll finish up the helper code, and then we'll test and show it tomorrow, and or not tomorrow, test and show it next time we revisit this application. This will be racer ground helper. I call it a helper because all he's doing is doing some checks. But basically, this little guy is going to be a mono behavior, and this little mono behavior guy is going to go on the I think the player body is how we'll do it. That's how we'll do it for now. No. Player, crap. Player container is not top layer. Player bod is player level. Okay, yep, because I want him to go on with the rest of the stockpile of stuff, so let's do racer, ground helper, and the reason I kind of do this too is you can see racer, everything racer is pretty much on here. There's player input, but you know, whatever. An input bridge because I want to make an input bridge that's for NPC as well, that just works easy. When we do that and doesn't have, so context is never changing, the helper is changing in case this one, but body. So under body, you'll probably go bod flip. So there's two ways to do this. There's physics sphere cast, and there's trigger. Do using on enter and on exit trigger. As far as I know, neither one of them really offers any performance benefit. So it's kind of just up to preference, I think, for the most part. Battletops uses on exit and enter trigger for spark detection. See if I spark on the floor. What's the other one? Sphere cast I used in a running one where I needed to throw a couple sphere casts all over to check for walls and whatnot. I don't think we're gonna see a benefit either particular way. So, and we're over tonight. I think I'll just leave that as a challenge for anybody that's following along and maybe wants to do a little challenge in between sections. I think the last challenge was to make it so that you could adjust variably as the designer to rotate the wheel at faster speeds based on what we had with the rigid body already. And then, so I think this challenge will be just, not even a big one. You don't have to connect it to the state machine, but just to detect if you're on the ground or not. And then I'll go ahead and show mine later. So before we go, I need a document. So thanks everybody for watching, coming. Like and subscribe and share videos if you're enjoying the series, or you have more questions or something that you want to see answered. Feel free to leave them in the comments and whatnot. Then we have this will stay the same. So all of these will stay on YouTube now. Yikes. All the days will stay on YouTube now for this week and probably next week. We'll look at revisiting that, but all the times are going to stay the same. 6 p.m. on Tuesday, 6 p.m. on Thursday, and Saturday game art at 10 p.m. Not 10 p.m. 10 a.m. is game art. Starting next Thursday, or not next Thursday, starting this Thursday, that would be the 15th. So starting the 15th, we'll start Brick Breaker, and then we'll do a game art. It'll either be on, it was going to be UI, but I think we might just do some simple stuff for Brick Breaker. doing a quick mini series, and then it's not going to be nearly as in depth as this one. So if you have friends that are interested in small, uh, like freshly starting beginners, this one will be more friendly towards them. Uh, and then we'll have game art for Brick Breaker, and we'll finish Brick Breaker probably 20th. 20th will probably be the last stream for that, unless we run over, and then it will be Thursday, but it won't be that long of a mini series, just a week or so. Um, it would be pretty slimmed down, and we won't have as many assets to play with. That'll be probably mostly regular sprite shapes and whatnot. Might do some world space things. That would be maybe a bit much for that level entry, but that's what we're looking at right now. So as always, remember to like and subscribe, share videos, and thanks for thanks for viewing. Have a bug-free night.